Continuing with Lama Yeshe Losal Rinpoche's book, From a Mountain in Tibet, from page 33. The cook told me that he'd heard Akhen Rinpoche had a little dog he kept with him at all times. Was this true? Every detail of Rinpoche's life was of interest, I was discovering. No, I told him. Akong had no dog. I was thinking to myself as I replied that actually I was like Akong's dog. Or perhaps I was like a tiny bird who had fallen silent. I felt like a prisoner. Anyway, locked up in a gilded cage of the Lhadron. The building was so comfortable because it had once been owned by a noble family, overlords to a few hundred other families in a close equivalent of a medieval European fiefdom. When the first Akon Tulku was recognized, the family offered the parcel of their land and building that lay immediately next to Dolmalakan to the Akon line to increase the monastery's prestige. Western societies are built on the practice of passing property down through a family line, and for lay people in Tibet the same holds true. In the Tulku tradition, land, wealth, and religious title are passed to the next incarnation of that spiritual teacher. In most cases, the reincarnate individual is from a different family, and even a different social caste to his predecessor. Many great teachers have been born into a noble family in one incarnation, and into a peasant nomadic family the next time. My brother had been recognized as the reincarnation of Karma Myo Zangpo, a great master and doctor of Tibetan medicine, who was the first Akon. The first Akon was born very close to Dolmalakan, and lived there all his life until his death in 1938, at which point the search began for his successor. When my brother's place of birth was divined by the head of our lineage, His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, a search party of lamas and envoys made their way to our tiny village to identify and retrieve him. He was then put through a series of tests to verify that he was, in fact, the right child. A number of ritual artifacts that had belonged to his predecessor were mixed with other random objects. My brother, who was just 2 years old at the time, reached unhesitatingly for the correct cup, bowl, and medicine bowl, and was consequently recognized as the authentic reincarnation of the Akon line of Tulkus. I know that reincarnation is a very alien concept for Western people, but it is fundamental to traditional Buddhist thought. According to the teachings of the Buddha, all beings go through endless cycles of birth, death, and rebirth that have no beginning and no end. This cycle of reincarnation, or samsara as the Buddha called it, is driven by karma. According to this key doctrine, all of our thoughts, speech, and actions, and the emotions that drive these actions, shape both this life and lives to come. breaks this cycle of reincarnation is attaining nirvana, or enlightenment. In the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism, which lies at the heart of Tibetan Buddhism, those who attain enlightenment and wish to return to help other beings become free of the cycle of rebirth and are known as bodhisattvas. They intentionally seek rebirth in order to carry on their compassionate work of helping to free beings from samsara. In Tibet, those who return in this way are described as tulkus. Reincarnation can be a struggle for Western people, and the specific practice of conscious reincarnation that marks out a bodhisattva or tulku doubly so. But most people grasp easily the basic idea of karma, which I sometimes paraphrase as, what goes around, comes around. Every action produces a reaction in oneself and in others. Our thoughts and emotions flavor our existence. When they are negative, they spur us to negative words and actions. Our sum total of unhappiness, anger, resentment, envy, covetousness, and self-pity increases. Other people naturally treat us as we treat them, mirroring our negative behavior back to us. Life becomes a vicious cycle with damaging consequences for ourselves and for others. This, I trust, is clear to anyone who has reflected on their life, even a little. I always say to people who are beginning to explore Buddhism to focus on incorporating a common-sense idea of karma into their thinking, and have faith that this will lead to greater insight as time goes on. If only I'd been able to open my own mind to any of the teachings, common sense or otherwise, that my older brothers were trying to impart back in Dol Molakan. But right from the start of my time there, my mind was closed, sealed by resentment, self-pity, and a naive sense that somehow my life was over. Continuing from page 33 of Lama Yeshe Losal Rinpoche's From a Mountain in Tibet.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just hearing the first part of a story about the cook. And he was very curious about Akam Rinpoche. And he was checking a story with Lama Yeshe Rinpoche.
It just shows you how places like that, stories gets carried around.
Yes.
It looks like everywhere's probably the same. You know, in small groups there's always something like that. Stories going around that's not really true. Yes. And well, I suppose the reason why Lama Yeshe never seen him so much, he was busy getting teachings from Chamgon Control.
Yes.
And he's getting seemingly, I can go inspired with Chamgon Control's teachings. But he wanted to do the same in his own monastery.
That's right. He had a lot of monks, didn't he?
Yes. And had lots of teachings to share with them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And as the head of the monastery, he could set the tone, couldn't he? If he wanted to be very laid back or very disciplined, that was going to be in his hands.
Yes, he set everything up. It's good that they have all the relics and all the texts that they need there. As you say, and a lot of monasteries in Tibet, you know, don't have all the texts. Very few monasteries have all the texts. So that's very, very good that they have that. I'm sure
It was a very special monastery, wasn't it, with the 16th Karmapa being involved with finding the second Akong.
That's right. That was very, very, very good. That's very interesting. Yes. So
there's quite a bit that was said about reincarnation and karma in this section.
That's right. That's right. Well, these are things in the West I find hard to believe in the West. But yet a lot of people in the West, believe in fairy stories.
Yes.
I find that hard to believe. I don't understand that,
Yes.
But however, the idea, reason why people don't find it hard to remember reincarnation and karma is because they can't remember their past life,
Yes.
And that is why, because they can't remember anything. But it's very few people who do remember.
Well, Akong Rinpoche demonstrated when he knew which objects to pick, didn't he? That he was the same person.
That's right. Yes, he knew right away. That was quite good. Picked everything out right away without hesitation, yeah.
Because another child would have just picked whatever was shiny or whatever was catching their attention.
But the Karmapa didn't need these techniques to know who the person is. He was able to do it himself.
Yes. It was just a tradition, wasn't it, that they would have a test?
Yeah, it's a tradition, yeah.
So they were keeping that up.
That's right. So 16 Karmapa, he was able to find people through his meditation without all that techniques. But of course they allow this to happen because it's a traditional, and they have to follow the tradition.
That's right.
Yeah.
A combination of the intuition and perception.
That's right.
And also the way it had always been done.
That's right. They kept it up. That's a good thing to do,
It's nice to have Lama Yeshe Rinpoche telling the story because he has insight into it that no one else will have.
Yeah.
And he was right there while it was all going on.
Oh, yes.
So he knows all the ins and outs, and he also was there to witness each step of the way, how things developed.
That's right.
Akong Rinpoche going from recognized at such a young age to being in charge of something so large and important in his teenage years.
This raises a question. I wonder if the Karmapa visited his monastery.
This is a good question. You could have done.
Not a question, Lama Yeshe, to ask. Answer.
Okay, well, we're making our question list, and we're putting on our question list. Yeah. Did 16th Karmapa ever visit Doma Lakan? And if so, what was that all about? What would have been the reason for him to come, and what would have been the nature of the connection? And
if that was so, we would like to hear about it.
That's right, we want to know. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this section of the chapter?
There's not an awful lot. We've already covered most of it, haven't we?
It was mostly about karma and reincarnation.
Yeah.
And how Akong Rinpoche came to be in the position that he was in.
Yeah, that's right. And it explains a wee bit about Tulkus too, They took the vow to come back, It's
a beautiful thing, isn't it?
See, there's two types of reincarnation. There's compulsory and those who's voluntary. Compulsory and voluntary reincarnation. Akong Rinpoche would be a voluntary, but like the ordinary people would be compulsory.
Based on their past actions.
Yeah, based on their past actions, yes.
Well, thank you, Lama Yeshe Rinpoche, for sharing the story with us from the point of view of someone who accompanied Akong Rinpoche. And so it's really a story of both brothers, which is so special.
Yeah.
Such important and unique individuals who have touched so many lives.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
Okay.